A billionaire placed $100 billion on the table in front of Ibrahim Traore, the man who had already stunned the world with his courage and his fight for his people. Imagine this moment carefully, because it was not just money, it was temptation wrapped inside power. Before we move forward, subscribe to this channel right now, because this story will keep twisting in ways you never expect. The air in the room carried a silence so heavy that even the tick of the clock sounded like thunder. The billionaire's eyes did not blink. His lips curved with a strange calm, and his hand pointed at a fortune as if it was nothing more than a simple glass of water. But Ibrahim did not move. He knew that money could build, but it could also destroy. His heart pounded in his chest like a drum that warned of an oncoming storm. Every man has a price, the billionaire whispered slowly, almost like a shadow that creeps through the night. But the way Ibrahim stared back showed that his soul had crossed lines where no currency could travel. The air between them felt charged, alive, as though the walls themselves were waiting for an answer. Then, the billionaire leaned closer, his words sharp enough to slice through the silence. "You are not refusing me. You are refusing your own blood." The words were a dagger, thrown without warning, piercing the very core of the conversation. Ibrahim's body stiffened. For a moment, he thought he had misheard. His brother? But his brother had died years ago, lost to a past filled with smoke, fire, and betrayal. He remembered the night he buried his memories, when he watched the flames consume everything they had once shared. He remembered the cold soil beneath his fingers, the heavy tear that refused to stop. How could that night be erased? Yet here, standing before him, was a man claiming to be the very blood he had mourned. The billionaire leaned back, his confidence unshaken, as if every word was carefully planned. 100 billion, he repeated, and this time it sounded less like an offer and more like a command. The temptation was no longer about wealth. It was about truth. Was Ibrahim staring into the eyes of a stranger playing a cruel game, or was he truly looking at a ghost from his past, a ghost who now held unimaginable power? His throat dried, his fists clenched, and his mind raced through every possibility. The memories of laughter, of brotherhood, of shared pain, crashed against the walls of disbelief. Ibrahim felt trapped inside two worlds, one where his brother had died, and another where his brother had returned, alive, rich beyond measure, and holding a test that could shatter everything he stood for. He took a deep breath, but before he could speak, the billionaire's voice struck again. "This is not a negotiation, Ibrahim. This is destiny." Ibrahim's heart pounded louder than the echo of those final words. Destiny. The billionaire had called it destiny, but to Ibrahim, it felt like a chain trying to wrap around his freedom. His eyes narrowed, searching every detail of the man before him. The sharp jawline, the steady hands, even the faint scar beneath his chin that flickered a memory he wished had remained buried. His brother had that scar. The night they both fled their village, when a soldier's blade caught him under the moonlight, leaving a mark that never faded. Ibrahim's breath caught in his chest. Could scars lie? Could time create an illusion so perfect that even his own mind betrayed him? The billionaire leaned forward again, his voice pressing closer, weaving like a serpent into Ibrahim's ears. "You buried me in your grief, but I walked into the fire and came out stronger. I am not the boy you knew. I am the man the world fears." The words carried both pride and poison. Ibrahim's fingers trembled as he rested them on the table. His body pulled between rage and hope. He wanted to believe, yet disbelief carved into him like a blade. Money meant nothing now. Truth was a weight pressing on his shoulders. If this was truly his brother, then how had he survived? Where had he been all these years? And why now, appearing not as family but as a billionaire holding the key to a fortune? Ibrahim's voice finally broke through the storm inside him. "If you are my brother, then tell me about the last night we saw each other." His voice was steady but laced with fire. The billionaire smiled faintly, a smile that was not warm, but sharp. He spoke of the night when the flames swallowed their home, when Ibrahim dragged him across the field while bullets cut the air. He spoke of their mother's final cry, her voice telling them to run, her hands pushing them into the darkness. Each detail was painted with such clarity that Ibrahim felt his chest tighten. Only his brother could have known those secrets, those shadows of pain. His knees weakened beneath the weight of memory colliding with reality. But before relief could soften his heart, the billionaire's tone shifted. "You left me. You ran, Ibrahim. You ran into the night and never came back. Do you know what it is like to be left to die by the only blood you trusted?" Ibrahim froze. His lips parted, but no words escaped. He remembered running. He remembered pulling. He remembered crying for his brother to follow. But he also remembered the moment the smoke blinded him, the chaos breaking them apart. He had never stopped searching, never stopped blaming himself. Now, standing before him was a man who claimed survival, yet carried wounds deeper than scars. The offer of 100 billion was no longer a gift. It was a test, a weapon, perhaps even revenge wrapped in golden paper. Ibrahim's breath grew heavy. He had never been afraid of guns, of generals, of threats. But here, facing the man who might be his dead brother, he felt fear clawing at him like never before. The room felt smaller with every breath Ibrahim took, as if the walls themselves were closing in to listen to the truth that was unfolding. His brother's words had reopened wounds that he had stitched with silence for years. The accusation of abandonment echoed louder than the ticking clock. "You left me." Those 3 words stabbed deeper than any blade. Ibrahim's jaw tightened, his fists clenched against the wooden table, but his eyes did not leave the face across from him. He wanted to scream, to explain, to remind him that he had searched through ruins, that he had walked through smoke until his lungs nearly collapsed, that he had dug with his bare hands until his skin tore, but no body was ever found. Yet all he managed to whisper was, "I never left you." The billionaire's eyes glimmered with something unreadable, a mixture of rage and sorrow, triumph and emptiness. "You chose survival," he replied coldly, "and survival turned me into something the world could not ignore." He leaned back, almost satisfied with the pain he had carved into Ibrahim's heart. The silence stretched again, and then he pushed the briefcase forward, its metallic lock shining beneath the dim light. 100 billion. All it takes is one decision, and together we can change the destiny of nations. His voice had softened now, persuasive, almost tempting, like a devil offering paradise. Ibrahim's chest rose and fell heavily. Was this truly about money? Or was it about power, forgiveness, or control? His brother had not come back as family, but as a force wrapped in wealth and secrets. Ibrahim's mind traveled back to the nights he fought for his people, where sacrifice was not measured in gold but in blood and hunger. He remembered the children with empty bowls, the mothers who buried sons too young, the fields left in ashes. Could money heal all of that? Or would it only create chains far stronger than poverty itself? He stood slowly, his chair scraping against the floor, his figure towering with defiance. "I do not fight for fortune," he said, his voice carrying a calm strength. "I fight for freedom." His brother smirked, shaking his head slightly, as though he had expected such a reply. "Freedom is an illusion, Ibrahim. You will learn that soon." His words were a quiet threat, chilling enough to slice through the moment. The briefcase remained on the table, untouched, heavy with both promise and danger. Ibrahim's eyes shifted toward it for a second, but his gaze returned to the man claiming his blood. There was truth in his scars, truth in his memories, yet darkness in his heart that felt unfamiliar. This was not the brother he had loved, the boy who once shared bread with him under the stars. This was someone else, someone shaped by shadows, someone who had returned with both wealth and vengeance. The question was no longer whether Ibrahim would accept the money. The real question was what price his brother truly wanted him to pay. The air between them thickened, carrying unspoken storm that neither man wanted to release. Ibrahim stood steady, yet inside, his heart was breaking into fragments of memory and disbelief. The man before him spoke with the tongue of his brother but the heart of a stranger. It was as if death itself had reshaped him into someone Ibrahim could no longer recognize. His brother's eyes once held warmth, but now they burned with ambition, so sharp it cut through the room like a blade. Ibrahim tried to search for the boy he remembered, the boy who once clung to his hand during the darkest nights, but all he saw was a shadow wrapped in wealth and bitterness. "Tell me, Ibrahim," the billionaire's voice carried with a measured calm, "do you think your fight can last forever without a cost? Do you not see the grave piling behind you?" His words echoed like thunder, striking the very core of Ibrahim's sacrifices. For a moment, doubt crawled into his mind, whispering that perhaps his brother was right. The weight of his choices had indeed created graves, though each one carried the honor of resistance. Yet Ibrahim's silence was his shield, and he refused to let his brother's voice dictate his destiny. The billionaire leaned closer, lowering his tone into a sharp whisper. "Nations fall not because of enemies, but because of brothers who cannot stand together. Imagine what the world would fear if we stood side by side again. He painted the image with precision, his words dripping with both hope and menace. For a fleeting second, Ibrahim imagined it. Two brothers, once torn apart, standing united with power that stretched beyond borders. But with that vision came the shadow of chains, a world where freedom was traded for fear, where wealth controlled voices and truth was buried beneath gold. Ibrahim's lips parted slowly. You speak of unity, yet I hear control. You speak of destiny, yet I feel betrayal. If you are my brother, then you have returned not to heal, but to rule. His brother's smile widened, a smile that carried no joy, only certainty. Rule, Ibrahim, is the only way to protect. His words were heavy, final, and dangerous. The briefcase remained untouched between them, its presence like a silent judge waiting for a verdict. Ibrahim's thoughts raced. If he refused, he risked turning his own blood into an enemy more dangerous than any foreign threat. If he accepted, he risked betraying the very people whose trust he carried like a sacred burden. The weight of choice pressed on him so fiercely that even his breath felt stolen. Then, with a sudden flicker in his brother's eyes, Ibrahim noticed something unusual. For the first time since he had walked in, a shadow of fear danced behind that mass of power. The billionaire's gaze shifted briefly to the door, as though someone else was watching, someone far greater than even he. Ibrahim felt the chill crawl through his veins. The question now was not only what his brother wanted, but who else was pulling the strings behind this game. Ibrahim followed the sudden flicker in his brother's eyes, and the silence inside the room grew heavier than ever before. It was no longer just the two of them in this battle of words and blood. There was someone else, an invisible presence pressing against the walls. Ibrahim stepped back slightly, watching the way his brother's hand tapped the table with nervous rhythm. This was not the confidence of a man who controlled billions, nor the certainty of a brother who had returned with a destiny. This was the hesitation of someone who carried a leash tied to his own neck. "Who are you afraid of?" Ibrahim asked softly, his voice steady but sharp enough to pierce through the silence. His brother's expression hardened instantly, but the delay in his reply betrayed him. "Fear is only for the weak," he answered coldly, though his eyes refused to meet Ibrahim's. Ibrahim knew that answer too well. It was a shield, the same shield he himself had once used when he wanted to hide his own scars. The air inside the room shifted again, colder, as if unseen eyes had entered with them. Ibrahim's brother leaned forward suddenly, his voice turning urgent. "You do not understand," he said quickly. "There are forces watching, forces that neither of us can defy. This is bigger than me, bigger than you, bigger than this nation." The words shook Ibrahim, for they carried a truth he had not expected. If his brother, armed with unimaginable wealth and influence, still trembled before hidden powers, then what sort of enemy was lurking in the shadows? Ibrahim's chest tightened as his thoughts raced. Was his brother truly here to reunite, or was he being used as a pawn in a game much darker than betrayal and money? The offer of $100 billion now looked like bait, a lure to drag him into chains forged by unseen hands. He studied his brother carefully, the way his voice faltered for the first time, the way his eyes betrayed fear even when his lips tried to hide it. "Speak the truth," Ibrahim demanded, his tone no longer pleading but commanding. "If you are my brother, then you owe me the truth." His brother's hand froze on the table, his jaw clenched, and finally, after a long silence, his words spilled like poison. "They kept me alive. They built me into this. They gave me power and told me to return to you. And now they are watching to see if you will bow." His voice cracked slightly, revealing both shame and defiance. Ibrahim's breath grew heavy as the storm of revelation crashed into him. His brother was alive, but not free. His brother was rich, but not his own master. He was a messenger carrying the weight of hidden rulers who pulled the strings from shadows darker than night. Ibrahim's heart trembled, not from fear of money or betrayal, but from the realization that his fight was about to reach a battlefield far beyond anything he had imagined. The room seemed to collapse into silence after those words, silence so sharp it rang in Ibrahim's ears like a bell of truth. "They built me into this." The confession lingered between them like smoke after fire, thick and suffocating. Ibrahim's chest tightened as he stared at the man across from him, his brother in flesh yet chained in spirit. He wanted to reach across the table, to shake him, to pull the boy he once knew back into the world of light, but what sat in front of him was no longer the boy from his memories. It was a man sculpted by shadows, carrying scars that well could not hide and wounds that no gold could heal. Ibrahim's voice finally broke through, calm yet fierce. "And now you sit before me, not as my brother, but as a weapon. Is that what you have become?" His brother's lips parted, but no word escaped. His eyes shifted, restless, torn between pride and shame. At last, he whispered, "I had no choice. They spayed me, they rebuilt me, and now they own me." The final word struck Ibrahim's heart like an arrow. Own. His brother was not free, not even with all his billions. Ibrahim stepped closer, his presence towering, his tone cutting through the weight of the room. "If you are truly my brother, then you will not ask me to bow. If you are truly my brother, then you will fight beside me, not as a servant, but as a man who still remembers who he was." For a brief second, hope flickered in his brother's eyes, a fragile light hidden beneath layers of darkness. But almost instantly, the shadow returned. "You do not understand," he said sharply. "Refusal means death, not just for me, but for you, for everyone who follows you." His words carried fear and warning, but Ibrahim only felt strength rising inside him. He had faced death countless times, had walked through fire, had carried the weight of entire villages on his shoulders. Fear had long lost its grip on him. Ibrahim leaned in, his voice a whisper yet powerful as thunder. "Then let them come." His brother's eyes widened, the mask of control breaking for the first time. There was silence, thick and endless, until a single tear slid down his brother's cheek, a tear he tried to hide but could not. It was a boy Ibrahim remembered, breaking through the cracks of the man he had become. The briefcase of 100 billion still lay untouched, glowing under the light like a curse wrapped in silver. Ibrahim looked at it one last time, before turning his gaze back to his brother. Blood could not be bought, freedom could not be sold, and destiny could not be written with chains. The choice was no longer about money, but about truth, about family, about the courage to stand even when the ground trembled. And then Ibrahim spoke words that shattered the silence forever. "If you are my brother, prove it. Stand with me now." But the question remained hanging in the air, burning like fire. When the moment of truth comes, will blood choose freedom?